I didn't buy the diary. I didn't borrow it, inherit it, or find it in a thrift store with a cracked leather spine and a romantic curse attached. It was just on my kitchen table when I came home from work, square, black, ordinary. My pen sat on top like it had been placed there to make a point. The point being, this is yours. I stood in my coat for a long time, keys still biting my palm. There was a ring of condensation from a glass I didn't remember setting down. And the diary sat perfectly inside it, like a target. It wasn't mine. It couldn't be mine. Still, I opened it. The first page had one line, written in a hand so familiar that my stomach dropped, as if the floor had shifted beneath me. 7:09 p.m. Keys in your left hand, imprint on your palm. You will read this line while the refrigerator hums and the upstairs neighbor drops a shoe. Before I could scoff, the fridge hummed the way it does when it kicks on to remind you you're alivened from above. Me came the thud of a shoe hitting floorboards. My keys were in my left hand. The imprint stung because I'd been clenching so hard. I laugh when I'm afraid. It sounds like someone else's voice coming out of me. I heard that laugh, high and thin, and I snapped the book shut. Very funny, I said to the empty kitchen. Because I've lived alone for 3 years, and talking to myself is a way to make the echo less sharp. Very elaborate. I looked for a camera. For a friend, crouched under the table. For a tell. There was nothing. Just me, the fridge, the neighbor and their shoe, the diary with my mother's looping. Geez, and the exact impatient way I cross my T's when I'm in a hurry. I opened it again. First page. 7:11 p.m. You'll say, very funny. And look for cameras. None. You'll open the book again. A few lines below. 7:13 p.m. You'll check the back of the book for written pages. There are more than you expect. Don't read ahead. You will. Of course, I flipped to the back. The pages fanned like a deck of cards. Some were blank. Many weren't. The dates rolled on ahead of me, neat and patient. My name threaded through the paragraphs like a needle. I read 3 pages before I realized I was holding my breath. The entries were mundane and intimate. You put the kettle on without water, scorch the element. You burn your tongue on soup and pretend it doesn't hurt. You unlock your phone to text your sister, erase what you write, type, never mind. It read like someone had been watching me from inside my life. Not beside it, not outside on the street, peering in through the glass. Inside, under my ribs. Dictating my habits back to me like a catechism. At 7:17 p.m., a line. You decide to test it. You say out loud, if you can hear me, write this. Okay, I said. Because I'm apparently the kind of person who bargains with paper. If you can hear me, write this. Slow as a bruise, letters surfaced beneath my eyes. Not appearing from nothing like a magic trick, more like water darkening the page, a message surfacing from the fibers where it had slept all along. This. I dropped the book. It thumped closed and slid across the table into my lap like a pet. It wasn't proof, not exactly. I could explain it 100 ways if I wanted to. And that's the trick of reality. You can talk yourself into any shape. But my hands shook the way they do when something passes close to you that you can't name. Then a page edge ticked against my thigh, impatient. I opened it again, because of course I did. 7:20 p.m., put water in the kettle. You'll forget. I put water in the kettle. Calibration. For the next 2 days, I used the diary like a cursed weather app. It told me there'd be a delivery slip shoved under my door by mistake for apartment 3B. You'll turn it over 3 times, without realizing why. It told me I'd drop my ring behind the sink. you'll curse. You'll get it with a chopstick. It told me the exact phrasing of the spam call at 1:14 p.m. Congratulations. You've been selected. It flirted with me in the margins, if that's the right word. It knew the shape of my private thoughts. The commas I don't admit to. It knew that when I pass the apartment with the red door, I imagine living there, though the layout is identical to mine. You will think I could be a different person across a hall and a coat of paint. I wrote in it. Of course I wrote in it. I asked who was writing. The response didn't come immediately, not while I watched. But later, when I was brushing my teeth, I flipped and the answer lay waiting, patient as always. I am you. I laughed again, the empty kind. From when, I wrote. From ahead, it returned. From the slight incline you don't feel under your feet. From the day where the bruise has already formed and you're just discovering the tender place. Poetic. I hate it when the universe is poetic. It makes you complicit. I tried a practical angle. If you're me from ahead, tell me something I don't know so I can stop it. I expected nothing, or worse, a smug blank. The page swallowed a line, the paper faintly wrinkling as if from breath. Don't take the late train on Thursday. I didn't ask why. I was too relieved to be told anything simple and useful. Thursday came. I left work early, invented an excuse, walked 3 stops home. And all the way, I watched for trains carrying versions of me. Car after car, of women with my mouth, my haircut, my uneven eyebrows, all of us choosing late, choosing wrong. When I got home, the diary was open on my table. I hadn't left it that way. Good, it wrote, the graphite, soft, my hand. Good, good, good. Don't skip pages. Don't read the end yet. I closed it gently. The next morning, it told me there was a fire at the station late Thursday. A small panic. No injuries. The headline had a photo crowds on the platform under gray smoke. Somewhere in the middle, I knew I would have stood. Drawing my scarf up over my mouth, trying to feel in the chaos for the shape of me. Divergence. The first time I tried to defy it, it was something small. The entry told me I'd wear the cream sweater with the coffee stain hidden under my hair. I wore the blue one instead, and smoothed it with both hands, as if I had to apologize to cloth. On my way out, my elbow caught the mug I'd left too close to the edge. Coffee sloshed. The blue sweater wore a stain at my shoulder, almost the same shape the entry had described. I laughed, and it sounded like I was underwater. Very funny, I wrote that night. I changed the sweater. Yes, the diary wrote back. You changed the sweater. I bought a different brand of toothpaste, just to punish it. It wrote about the taste, as if it had known all along. Do you know what it feels like to realize you are not a person who surprises even yourself? Sister, I told Mara I had to. My sister is a skeptic, in a way I admire and sometimes want to break against. She'll take your fevered confession and turn it into a diagram. She isn't cruel about it. She just likes the world to hold still while she looks at it. She came over with a six-pack and sat cross-legged on my floor with her hair up and her eyebrows narrowed at the book on the table like it was a mouse we had to coax out with crumbs. Cold reading, she said eventually. You're doing this, you just don't realize it. How? Autopilot. Priming. You see the line, you'll drop your ring and your hands go loose because you're thinking about your ring. Then you drop it. She gestured with the bottle. Brain is a suggestion machine. Tell it, don't, and it hears, do. What about trains? Thursday. Coincidence. What about, I hated my voice. Hated how it wanted to plead. What about it writing, while I watch? She shrugged. Trick paper, thermo whatever. You remember those pens from middle school? Ink that appears. I handed her a pen. Write something I don't know. She wrote, "You will get a weird bruise on your hip later." She underlined later twice and smirked like she'd proven something. We drank another beer. She vented about her boss and the way their office coffee tastes like cardboard. She hugged me at the door and promised to check in tomorrow. "Don't marry the book," she said, a joke she didn't have to explain. "It's not your type." I went to brush my teeth. When I lifted my shirt to wash my face, there it was, a bruise the size and shape of a thumbprint on my hip, slanted like a comet. "You wrote that," I wrote in the diary, feeling childish and hysterical at once. "Not me." The answer took longer than usual. I could imagine my own face thinking, weighing words. "We're entangled." The loops of my E's tightened, as if I were concentrating. When they touch you, I feel it first. When I write it, you look for it. When you look for it, it darkens where it already was. Who touched me? I whispered to my empty kitchen, because now, at last, there was a they, and they are always easier than a me. The diary did not answer. Edits. I started catching corrections that weren't mine. The way you catch someone fiddling with your recipe when you step out of the room. In the entry about Mara visiting, a line had been added in the margin with a little arrow. "She will call you at 10:32 tomorrow. Don't answer." A second arrow amended it later. "If you answer, say you're tired. Do not meet." I didn't like that at all. The diary could predict. Fine. It could speak in the voice I knew better than any other. Fine. But it could not tell me not to see my sister. It could not make me small in my own life. I put my finger on the line as if I could smudge it out. The graphite refused to budge. At 10:32, the phone rang. I answered. Mara's voice was thin with distance. There was a pause before she spoke, like the sound had to catch up. "I'm outside your building," she said. "Can you let me in?" "Yes," I said, because I am not obedient to paper. I went to the buzzer. I pressed the button. I waited. No footsteps on the stairs. No rattle of the door. I called her name into the intercom, and my voice made a white noise hiss, and then nothing at all. I called her back. The call failed. I tried again. Failed. At 10:38, my phone pinged with a voicemail. "Unable to connect your call," then a text that was just a single punctuation mark, a period, then another, 3 commas, then my name, half-typed and erased. The dots in the speech bubble, stuttering for 10 whole minutes. I sat down. I looked at the diary because I didn't know where else to put my eyes. "Good," it wrote. "Good. Keep the door closed tonight." I wanted to throw it against the wall. Instead, I turned to pages ahead, out of spite. The line at the top of that page was written in a heavier hand. The words pressed deeper into the fiber, the loops thick, as if whoever wrote them had leaned hard enough to tear. Last week, it read in all caps, "Do not read yet." I read it anyway. The ink felt wet even though it wasn't. The entry started 3 paragraphs down, as if 2 had been ripped out. "You will find this page after the fire alarm chirps twice for no reason. Do not run into the hall. Do not open the door. There is smoke. There is shouting. Someone is lying in the corridor with their face against the carpet and a bottle broken under their hand. The label on the bottle is green. You will think it is wine. It is not. Do not touch. Wait with your face near the crack under your door and breathe. The clean stripe they left you. The hall will be loud and then quiet." My lungs hurt while I read. It felt like the book knew where my breath would be. I wrote under it, "Who? Who is lying there?" The answer came small, like a whisper typed. "You know." I shut the book. I stood up. The fire alarm chirped once, twice. I didn't open my door. I put my face to the crack and breathed until the hall went from a sound like bees to an empty that felt cavernous. I counted to 1,000 in a voice only I could hear. In the morning, the carpet outside was damp in crescents, like someone had sobbed into it and cleaned up with their sleeve. A green shard glinted near the elevator. It said Pinot in cursive. There was no note from the building. No email, no apology. My sister texted me at 9:12. Are you okay? I stared at that question for a long time before I typed back, yes. Then, come over. The dots blinked, stopped. From the table, the diary ticked like a metronome, even though there was nothing mechanical about it. The double? The first time I saw her. She was in the window across the alley where there is no window. That will sound like a trick of phrasing, but I mean it exactly. There is a blank brick wall across from my kitchen. There has always been a blank brick wall. I see pigeons land there, their claws scratching mortars. I see rust trickle when it rains. But that morning, there was a bright rectangle where there had never been. A rectangle, and within it, a woman with my face pulled her hair into a knot with familiar impatience and looked up at me like she expected me to be there. I dropped the spoon I'd been using to stir my coffee. It clinked too loudly. She flinched too, and then she smiled the way I smile when I'm about to say something conciliatory and not at all what I mean. We both put a hand up. We both stopped at the same time. She laughed. I didn't. The window blinked out. Brick, pigeons. The diary was open to a page I did not remember opening. Good, it said. You saw her. Who is she? I wrote, my hand jerking the pen, the curve of my S gone sharp. Me, you. The you that writes before you read. The you that closes the door while you still have time. The one this book belongs to, if belong is the word. Can I talk to her? You are? Where are you? I wanted to ask, but that presumes a coordinate. And it had already made it clear we were dealing in inclines and bruises, not addresses. Stop skipping, it wrote, instead. Stop peeking. The end is harder when you know it too early. The end, which I read anyway. I read it anyway. I'll tell you because if I don't say it out loud, it will sit in my throat like a stone and nothing will pass. The final pages were uneven. Some lines obliterated with thick bars of graphite. Some overwritten 3 times as if someone had been shaking. There were dates. Then dates crossed out. Then today, written in block letters. Then that scratched through, and yesterday, written above. Then an arrow pointing to the margin, where a single, tidy line stood untouched. When you read this, you will be sitting at your table with the book open, and the window across the alley will reflect a street you've never seen. Do not look at the door. It is unlocked. He will knock once. Do not say, "Who is it?" He will use your sister's voice. Do not open the door. If you keep the door closed, you will live today. If you open it, you will die today. Either way, write the last line. Either way, I said aloud. Because sometimes you have to hear the sound of something damaging you before you'll admit it's the thing doing the damage. I stood up. I walked to the door. I checked the deadbolt. It was unlocked. I turned it. Locked. My hand left sweat on the brass. I stood with my forehead against the wood and waited for the knock. In the book behind me, I could feel the last page humming like a wire. From the hallway, soft as breath, a single knock. Then Mara's voice, perfect. The lilt she has when she's trying to pretend she isn't asking too much. "It's me," she said. "Hey, I forgot my key." I pressed my whole self against the door, as if my body could become another lock. "Go away," I said, and my voice fractured, and I hated the fracture. "Mara, if it's you, call me." Silence then. I can't. My phone died. Please. I cried then. Ugly, childish. I slid down the inside of the door and put my ear to the crack. The hall smelled like dust and the carpet cleaner they use that pretends to smell like lemons. Please, she said. And the please was high and frayed with panic and exactly how she sounded. When she was 10 and we were locked out of the house in summer and Mom wouldn't get home for an hour. I did not open the door. I wanted to. I wanted the wanting to be the proof that I was still a person and not a puppet yanked by graphite strings. But I did not open it. The voice stopped. The hall exhaled. I crawled to the table. The window across the alley held a street I didn't know, cobalt, wet. Someone with my walk crossed it with my coat on, her head down against rain. She did not look up. The page waited. Either way, it had said. I picked up the pen. Write the last line. My hand hovered. Somewhere beyond the door, a footstep shifted weight. You know the sound of a person deciding. You can hear it through wood the way you can hear thunder through your sternum. I won't, I said to no one, and to myself. You can't make me. I underlined the sentence I'd chosen a dozen times in my head for a dozen tiny betrayals. I will not write this. But when the pen touched paper, it did not write those words. It wrote, in my even, patient hand, as if it had been waiting. When you read this, you will understand that I loved you enough to make us obedient. I dropped the pen. The scratch of it on paper continued without me. Lines continued to write themselves, my hand moving, though I was not in it. You will live today, it wrote. You will live because we learned the cost of the other choice. You will live because last week you opened the door. Because you stepped into the hall and turned the body with the green bottle and you said, Mara. Even though you knew her voice when you heard it, and he looked up and his mouth was wrong and there were hands, and I am writing this so we never do it again. The room tilted. My stomach turned like I was on a boat that had been pretending to be an apartment. I don't remember, I said, which was not quite true. I remembered the shape of a panic, the blank of waking up on my kitchen floor with a bruise on my hip like a thumbprint. I remembered the smoke and the green shard and how the building refused to acknowledge any of it because buildings are cowards. Across the alley, the window blinked. Brick again. The diary softened under my palm. I turned to the page as if I were taking pulse. One line waited, neat. Close the book. I didn't close it. I held it open and watched for an addition I could misinterpret. I argued with paper again. I told it I was not obedient. The page did not change. From the door, another single knock. Gentle, practiced. Then my voice, my exact voice said, "It's me," and laughed. The laugh that always sounds like it belongs to someone else. I put my hand on the last page. "Who are you?" I asked. The wood, me from ahead, me from behind. Which of us knocks? No answer. There never is, when you need one. I closed the book. The knock stopped. I keep the diary in the freezer now, because the freezer is the closest thing I have to an altar. You put what you can't handle on a shelf and chill it until you can. It doesn't matter. The words still appear where they want to, on receipts. In the fog, on the bathroom mirror. Once in the condensation ring under a glass, as if the table itself had learned my handwriting. I live today. That is the truce. I live with the door locked and my ear to the crack and the kettle full and the trains not taken. Some nights, the window across the alley is brick. Some nights, it is a street I half remember. On those nights, a woman with my coat crosses and never looks up. I have not read the very last page. Not because I am obedient, don't flatter yourself. Paper, but because I understand that to read is to become. And if there is a mercy left in me, it is the mercy I owe my future. A few hours where the bruise has not yet bloomed. Where the knock is only wood settling. Where I can pretend I am the person who comes home to find a book on the table and laughs, like it belongs to someone else. Tonight, the fridge hums. The neighbor drops a shoe. My keys leave an imprint on my palm. I do not open the door. I do not look at the window. I opened the freezer. I touched the cold cover with 2 fingers, like a benediction. When I close it again, something writes itself on the frost in my mother's looping good. And for once, the voice that answers in my throat does sound like mine.